Whether you're looking for answers to specific life questions or seeking to become the best version of you possible, welcome to the Mental Breakdown and Psychreg podcast, where we offer insight, information, and strategies based upon research and years of practice as clinical psychologists. So sit back, have a listen, and get connected with our hosts, Dr. Berney Wilkinson and Dr. Richard Marshall. Welcome back. Today's topic is about sublimation. This is the third in our series on defense mechanisms. And sublimation is, I know that you're very excited to talk about sublimation.
I cannot wait to get started.
That's great.
I know.
But
You like that enthusiasm. Psychological enthusiasm.
It's a...
I love this stuff.
Trying to figure out which defense mechanism that is.
I just love this stuff. I really do. Oh, God, I love teaching it. I love talking about it.
That's good.
Yeah, because I like Freud.
Yeah.
I'm one of the... I just admire Sigmund Freud.
Yeah?
I really do. It's not about... He takes a bad rap. We said that the other day. Yeah. Freud takes a bad rap because everybody makes jokes about him, but the guy was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, He was the one who came up with these things, and he's just absolutely brilliant. We got to stand on the shoulders of giants.
That's true.
And Freud is a giant.
That's true. So today is sublimation, and what sublimation means is that you're taking the energy or the frustration or the difficult or negative feelings from an issue, a problem, and you're channeling that energy into something else instead of dealing with or focusing on what you need to be focusing on.
Right. In a sense, you're sort of burying it.
Right.
So think of sublimation, submarine, you're burying it under something. But you're right, you're channeling it. You're channeling some feeling that you don't want into something that you perceive to be more worthwhile or more valuable or more useful.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So
for example,
if you are, we see this in people who are, if they feel very frustrated in a relationship or they feel very frustrated in a certain situation, they may channel all of their focus into exercise.
That's right.
And so they will spend an inordinate amount of time exercising and thinking about exercising and focusing on exercising and finding times to exercise. And so instead of the typical 30 minutes to an hour a day, you may find these people exercising 2 or 3 hours a day.
That's right.
Because they're channeling all that energy into exercising, thinking that it's a positive thing because they're exercising, but there are issues with it,
right?
That we'll get to.
And you use the word energy, and we all have this energy. Okay, some have more than others, but we all have this. Freud often referred to it as the id,
right?
And he equated it to sexual energy. Well, we know there's more than sexual energy, but he said we all have this energy. And we have to use it up. We have to dissipate it. Okay, we have to absorb this energy. And if we don't do it in constructive ways, we will do it in destructive ways. So let's say, using your example of the relationship, somebody is frustrated sexually in the relationship. I'm not getting enough sex. I'm not getting enough attention. I don't want to be unfaithful. I don't want to move outside the marriage relationship. So how do I deal with my frustration? How do I deal with that energy? Well, instead of confronting the problem directly, you say, okay, I will exercise. Right. I'll get rid of my frustration by exercising. Right. Okay. There was a program on a few years ago about these mega marathons. A marathon is 26 point something miles. 26.2 miles. These people run 150 miles at a time. Well, to do that, that's your whole life.
Right.
Or people who do triathlons where they have to work out 3 and 4 hours a day. Ironman triathlon.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful, kind of a wonderful way, I guess, but it begins to consume your life. Okay. It begins to take over. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves because now we're talking about the maladaptive part of sublimation. But sublimation is channeling that energy, denying that. Again, we see the overlap, denying that there's a problem, or you're not actually denying it, you're just pushing it down and you're replacing it with something that you think is more adaptive.
Right. So there are, of course, positive attributes to sublimation, because there are many times, I know that there are many times when I even recommend therapeutically for a person who is frustrated, or if they find themselves being agitated or angry or frustrated about a situation, to channel that energy into some form of exercise or something else. And so, and people do this very often. Again, not really recognizing that it's sublimation, but when you encourage your kid or your spouse or yourself to, when you're really angry, just go hit a pillow or go hit a punching bag or something. Well, so what you're doing is you're shifting or channeling that frustration into something that's not solving the problem or not addressing the issue. So you're angry with your significant other, so you go hit a punching bag or you go for a run. There again, the positive side of that is that if the nature of the relationship is such that there's not going to be resolution, or that resolution is going to be very difficult to find, or if you find yourself so emotionally charged at the time that there's no way that you can be rational in having a discussion at that time, but you still need to get rid of that frustrating energy at the time, going out and running or going exercising or just going and doing something else is a very good way to manage that energy.
That's right. As an initial step.
Right.
Okay, because what we never want to do with these defense mechanisms is to ignore the original problem.
Right.
Okay. Sometimes we teach sublimation, particularly with children. We'll say, it's okay to be angry, you just can't hit your sister.
Right.
Okay, so we teach more acceptable behavior. However, we still have to deal with the child's anger at some point. Okay? Because that's the real problem. Okay.
Yeah. So there are those positive times when we need to use sublimation. Now, as you sort of began talking about a moment ago, there is a very negative side of sublimation, and that is when we use it, but then fail to address the issue. We have to return back to address the issue. And as you said, it's sort of an overlap a little bit with denial, in that we use sublimation to get rid of the frustration and energy at the time, but we then sort of deny any, and it's not necessarily that we're denying the information, we're denying ourselves the opportunity to resolve the problem. So it's sort of a different kind of denial.
That's right.
So what we need to do is we need to address it. We need to maybe deal with the acute emotions and acute issues at the time through sublimation.
Right.
But then return back to the source of the problem and figure out how to solve the issue.
That's right. There's a controversy in the substance abuse community today, because some will argue that, well, you just have to stop, period. It doesn't matter. You just need to stop drinking. You just need to stop using drugs, which is okay. But if a person simply stops but doesn't deal with the causes of the addiction, the chances of relapse are pretty high.
Exactly.
Whereas other people will say, no, until you've dealt with the underlying problem that caused you to drink, to turn to drugs or alcohol, you're never really going to recover.
Right.
So sublimation, and this is a good example of sublimation, I'm an alcoholic, I'm not going to deal with the real problem in my life.
Right.
I'm going to start exercising.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And it's a good first step.
Right.
But it's not the completion of the treatment.
Right.
Okay.
So we have to make sure, again, if we use really any of the defense mechanisms, if you use it initially, that's sometimes that's okay.
Right.
But you have to recognize the need to return to it, and so that you can actually deal with it and resolve problems. And I'm going to keep going back to that way you can learn and grow and mature as a person. And
that's right.
Human.
But as we saw with denial, we saw it with projection, now we see it with sublimation. It's okay to protect your ego. Right. It's okay to protect yourself. But then you have to go back and you have to deal with the problem that has that caused you to defend yourself to begin with.
Right.
Okay. That's the second step.
Right. And much of this is where therapy comes in. Because if it really is a problem such that you have to use denial, projection, or sublimation, or any of the other ones that we're going to talk about, what that means is that it's a really difficult and intense issue, and so you need some help with that. You may need to go talk with somebody or a therapist or a counselor or somebody to help you cope with the problems that you're protecting yourself from.
Right. And we have the advantage of working together, and so we talk to each other all the time about, is it something that, and often, probably every week, one of us will say, well, is it something I'm doing?
Right.
So because we can feel ourselves using these defense mechanisms, but the next question is, so first of all, you have to recognize that you are using a defense mechanism. Then the next thing is it something that I'm doing?
Right.
In each case.
Yeah.
How do I get to the core problem? That's how you stay mentally healthy.
Right. Absolutely.
Emotionally healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
and you teach kids to do the same thing.
Exactly.
And that's the other thing. Kids, you said it way back when we were talking about denial. Kids are they're masters at denial.
Right.
Okay. They can really convince themselves that they didn't do it because they have fragile egos.
Right.
Okay. But as we mature, we want to develop ego strength,
Right.
and we do that by dealing with these problems.
Exactly. So
not sublimating them and denying them.
Right. Because that doesn't get us anywhere.
Freud was so good. I don't know how he did it.
You just
Wouldn't you just like to talk to him?
You just love him so much.
I just like to sit down and have dinner with. Just talk to him about this stuff. Oh man, he was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, he smoked cigars.
That's true. He did.
Unfortunately, he got cancer.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
All right.
I like. Okay.
You like? Okay.
We're gonna do some more.
Yeah, we have a couple more that we're gonna go through the rest of the day. The last two we're gonna do are intellectualization and rationalization.
You like intellectualization?
I do. I like these last two are my favorite too.
Are they really?
They are. Ooh. They are. So, but we'll do those another time.
Okay.
So until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and forget to be afraid.